In case you guys haven't watched one of the previous videos where I met a wonderful family, and there's a young girl in the family that has been diagnosed with cancer, had a surgery. It's very expensive to have that done. So please go onto our online store and find the product that says God's Bear Hunt and donate to that if you would, please, because we're trying to help this family get rid of some of those crazy medical bills. Hello, I'm Greg with Brownlow Rights. Today we're going to be taking a look at the new Vectronix Vector X. Now this is a brand new laser range-finding binocular from Vectronix. Some of you may be familiar with Vectronix. They've been producing very high-end range-finding systems for a very long time. They are probably what I would call the most capable creator of rangefinders on planet Earth. I have extensive experiences with their products, the first of which that I ever had was the original Terrapin. Now, some of you might remember this little guy. This is the Terrapin, and we'll get back to him in a second. I've also used the LRF 10, 15, 25. I've also used the Vector 4s, the Vector 21s, and the Vector 23s, which I own. So I have quite a lot of experience with Vectronix over the years, just as I have quite a lot of experience with the commercial and the more well-known range-finding units, such as that available from Leica, Swarovski, SIG, and others. I think a lot of you have gotten into this discipline very recently. When I got into this discipline and started pursuing it very seriously, I think I took an interest in it in about 2004, 2005. In that time, the changes in technology have been extraordinary. Probably around 2012, when I got my first Vectronix rangefinder. Now, this was the original Terrapin, or what was known by some as the PLRF 05. And that original Terrapin was an incredible leap forward in ranging capability. I mean, I could range a house at like 4,000 yards with the thing. I mean, it was just unbelievable. And it would range a full-size IPSC plate at like 2,500 yards. I mean, it was absolutely bonkers. We're talking this is over a decade ago, folks. When I got that rangefinder, we're talking well over a decade here. Once I got that capability, it really took my ability to shoot precisely to a whole other place. Now, some of you may have seen the previous video that we did about rangefinder deficiencies and how important it is that you have the actual range. Because when you get out there to 13, 14, 1,500 yards, if you're off by 10, 12, 20 yards on your range, folks, that is going to be a miss. And I don't care how well everything else in your system is working. If you have that kind of ranging error creeping in when you get out to those extended ranges, you're just not going to do well. So having a rangefinder that reports the actual range is critically important to a long-range shooter. There's a lot of gear in this discipline that we can kind of take 6 of one, half dozen of the other, kind of doesn't really matter approach. But this is not one of those things. If you don't have an actual range to target, you cannot do this discipline effectively. So placing a high importance on this piece of gear is very just and right. Because if your rangefinder is not working correctly, you're going to have a very difficult time getting precise shots made in the field. Now, many of you, just like myself, you're using these rangefinders oftentimes in a long-range hunting or precision hunting capacity. So it is extremely important that it be able to perform at the ranges that you can or intend to engage those animals. I literally just unboxed these things yesterday. And so I've spent literally one solid afternoon and a good portion of this morning with them. Folks, that is not enough time to give you a real review of this product. But there's such an in-depth product. There's so much going on here. We've got so many different attributes to talk about. Trying to pack it all into one video just didn't seem like a very good idea. So just consider this a first impressions video. Like, this is just kind of how my experience is going. I'll try to check in with you guys with some update videos in the future about some of the specific attributes and how I feel that those things are going as I continue to learn how to use the unit, because it is quite advanced. The manual is something like 120, 150 pages or something. I'm not even sure. It's just a gigantic manual that I need to go and dig through. The menu system is very vast, and it's not necessarily complicated, but there's a lot going on in this thing. Now, to start with, the size and weight and general bulk of this thing is very much the same as what you'd expect from the other competing units on the market. You can see that it's not that much wider. It's just a tiny bit taller than some of the other units like the Swarovski. Kind of package, its bulk is pretty much the same as what we're accustomed to. You guys can look up the specs and weight and right to the ounce and all that stuff all you like. It really doesn't concern me that much. Obviously, a unit like my Vector 23, that thing is way too bulky to put on your chest. Whereas these units, the commercial-sized units, they're all pretty much about the same, and I haven't really found much that separates them. Now, before we get too far into this video, I want to take a moment to address a significant problem that I've had with Vectronix as a company in the past. A lot of you may recognize this little guy right here. Now, this is the original Terrapin. Now, I bought this back in like 2012, and this little guy was fantastic. And for about 5 years, this was my primary go-to rangefinder. 5 or 6 years, I forget exactly when I started not using it anymore. And the reason that I didn't use it was because the laser drifted off of its aim point. That means it has an etched reticle in it, just like the new Vector X. Well, the laser, like where the laser was actually pointing, drifted away from the center of the reticle. And so it just kept drifting, and in order to find out where it was drifting to, I had to suspend an object at the apex of a hill and hunt around for where the laser was actually reading out on the thing. It was extremely frustrating, especially when I had come to rely on that unit so much over the years. Now, this little guy was originally priced at like $2,200, okay? And that thing, at its price point at the time, it was... Everybody freaked out because it's so expensive, just like it happens these days. Every new thing that comes out, everybody just screams about how expensive it is. But that unit was extremely capable. It punched way above its weight class for what it was capable of. So I had come to rely on that thing very heavily, and this problem happening was extremely unpleasant. And so, like I say, I want to say it was around 2018, 2019. I forget exactly when I started having problems with it. But at that time, I tried to go and get it serviced. I thought, well, it's broken. I forget exactly what the advertised warranty period for the thing was, but suffice it to say, I couldn't get it fixed. I sent emails. I bounced back and forth with the Saffron Vectronix overseas, talked to their people here stateside, the company that they kind of appointed the service center for these things. Nothing happened. Folks, you're looking at a $2,200 paperweight, okay? Yeah, the laser still fires, it still functions, but I mean, like, it drifts around. Today, I'm not even sure where the laser actually points. So here's a $2,200 paperweight. No recourse. Cannot get it fixed. No parts, no product availability, whatever. No offer to do anything about it. You know, this seems to happen a lot with European companies. The idea that they have about service over there must just be really, really different than our American companies. Now, conversely, we have companies like Vortex, which is one of the units that I'm comparing in this video. And Vortex, I could take a product that I bought from Vortex 10, 12, 15 years ago and say, hey, I'm having problems with this thing. They would fix it. It might be on my dime. but they would fix it. And I was more than willing to pay for this thing to be fixed. But there was literally nothing that I could do. And then I heard several horror stories from guys that had other Vectronix units where they would, the repair center, I read posts about this on the forums as well, and I can still go find those posts today. Folks, we're talking about pieces of equipment that cost thousands of dollars. And conversely, I could call Vortex with a piece of gear that I bought from them 12 years ago and say, hey, this thing's broken. They'd probably just send you a new one. Right? Like, the American company way of doing business is clearly not something that a lot of these European companies understand or want to do. It's almost like they like getting the United States civilian shooter market's money, but they don't like dealing with us in terms of what we would like to expect. I mean, we want our investment to be safe. And generally speaking, we've been demonstrated over and over again that it just isn't. Not in the way that a lot of our good American companies will allow us to feel that safety. Now, there is tons of stories out there for you guys to go and view yourself about how lovely it is working with companies like that take care of their customers in that way. Makes you feel extremely good about spending your money there. Now, I wanted to bring this up in this video because, yeah, I still have this thing. It's a paperweight, okay? It never took a knock in its whole life. It's never been dropped. It's never been mistreated. I mean, look at this thing. It is it looks almost new, right? I mean, this thing has been kept in a padded case its whole life. And every time it comes out, it's in my hand or mounted on a tripod or something, and then goes right back in the case. It was treated as gingerly as any piece of equipment that I own, and it still has these problems. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is we're dealing with another Vectronix product that's kind of at a similar price point. These things are roughly $2,900. This model is a 12 by 42. The warranty issue on what's going to be done about these things, time will tell here what's going to happen if they start having any problems, because these have a etched reticle in them as well. And will that laser drift? I don't know. It took a lot of years for mine to drift, but it did. And after it did, it's a paperweight. Okay, they have not made any offers to fix it. They haven't made any offers to replace it. I'm stuck with it. Okay, so it's like I used it for a few years and then it's done. Now, these units differ in the sense that Euro-Optic is the only point of contact in the United States for these things, I think. And I'm told that they're going to be handling all of the warranty work. So the support, a lot of the support is going to be like relayed to Vectronix, or maybe Vectronix will do support directly here stateside. They have kind of a Vectronix shooting sports website that's different from their Safran stuff. So they're separating these products from the big-time military type equipment, and that might be a positive step forward. And we all know or have some familiarity with Euro-Optic. I did get set up as a dealer for these through them, and so I only have this one set right now. I wasn't able to compare this set against any other sets, so this is my sample size of one, and that's why this is not like a review. It's just kind of a first impressions deal, because I really need like 3 or 4 or 5 of these things before I can really weigh in on the average of what they're capable of from unit to unit. Now, Euro-Optic has said that they're going to be taking care of a warranty replacement, and I've been verbally assured that this type of situation should never happen again. But hey, time's going to tell on that one, folks. We need some of these things. Sadly, we're going to have a few of these Vector X's break and have problems that need to get addressed before we're going to learn what this new arrangement that they've got with Euro-Optic looks like. As you can tell, myself and several others that I know of are a little bit bitter over the past treatment where we purchase a product that's at that level and can't get proper support for it. Ergonomically, the unit is pretty well thought out. It's pretty easy to hold in your hand and look through. So let's talk about the feature set a little bit. On the bottom here, it has an integral mount for the Really Right Stuff little tripod bracket, and that was really smart, folks. This is the most rigid, best tripod binocular mount that I've ever used. It has adjustment so that you can loosen this little thumb screw here in the back, and that thing will pivot. So if you mount that into the tripod, you can shift that little shoe to kind of level these things out so that you're not sitting there on the tripod looking like this. Now, I know a lot of you have used some solutions in the past that's what we had to do. Folks, that absolutely sucks. If you're sitting there trying to glass for hours on end and you have your head cocked like this, that is murder. Okay, if you spend any amount of time glassing, that is going to kill you. So having that ability to loosen this little thumb screw up and tilt that thing, that's awesome. So Really Right Stuff absolutely killed it on that mount. I don't know if it was them that designed that or if it was Vectronix that designed that and commissioned them to make it, or how that all relationship happened. As you guys know, I'm a huge fan of Really Right Stuff. I use all of their tripods, specifically the 34 and 33 series with the Anvil 30 head. Best tripods for shooting and glassing that you can possibly buy. And Really Right Stuff also has this new little swivel head mount that kind of behaves like a fluid head. It's a pan tilt mount that is designed for this purpose. It's extremely compact and lightweight. And so they're making it so you can just hook directly up to the Arca mount on this in their ecosystem. Bravo, guys. I mean, well done. That's an incredible feature, significantly better than the little mounts that go up in the front here, and they pivot on the pivot axis on the binos themselves. This Really Right Stuff thing, it sits here, and I thought, well, is it low enough? Like, it's kind of in the way. Well, it's going to be cold, right? If it's freezing cold outside and put your bare hands on that, it's going to freeze your hands. It's not going to be that nice coating that we have on all the rest of this. And most of these bino coatings are getting to be about the same here. They're kind of grippy, but kind of rubbery, plasticky type stuff. And they're pretty warm in the hand when it's cold outside. Well, folks, this is anodized aluminum. That is going to freeze right to you, okay? It's going to suck your will to live right out of you if it's really cold out. So having that mount on there, and it attaches with the 4 screws also. So it's not like it's just some quick detach mechanism that you can just rip off of here really quick. It is on there, okay? Once you install that thing, it is on there. Now, it doesn't seem to get in the way. I can drop these things into my bino pouch pretty easy. It's not like it sticks out a ton. It does protrude, but it's not so much that it won't go in your bino pouch. And it doesn't necessarily affect your hand either. As you can see when I'm grabbing this thing, it doesn't really affect how I can hold it. I can still grip them firmly. And I mean, hours on end, yeah, I'd probably dig into your hand a little bit. But realistically, if you're sitting there for hours on end glassing, you're probably going to have it in a tripod of some kind. It has a standard diopter configuration here. So you have these rings that you can adjust to make sure that the reticle is in focus. Obviously, the reticle being in focus is important because this is just like a scope. We've got an etched reticle, and then the laser is projecting the display also. And so if you want that stuff to be in focus, you're going to have to use those rings to get it in focus. Now, something that's noteworthy here on that front is that all of the display data is coming through the right side, okay? So if I'm looking like this, it's this one, all right? So if you guys are looking through this, it's coming through the right one. There's not actually any information displayed in here, and you can't see the reticle through here either on the left side. Now, this is something that any of you with left eye dominance have probably encountered before. It can kind of be disorienting looking through these things when there's a bunch of information displayed and your brain's not wired up to be getting all that information from that eye. So it can take some practice to do that. Now, I will have the opportunity to have someone that's left eye dominant take a look through these things here in the future. I'll be sure to report back to you guys how that goes and what their experiences are. Now, the eye cups on these are very positive clicking. Can you guys hear that? Extremely tight and well done. A lot of units, they're kind of squishy and you kind of never really know what setting you have them on. Not the case here. These things click positively and work very effectively. And when you get them in the position that they're in, they stay there, so you don't have to worry about them drifting around on you. In actual practical usage, I found these things to be pretty hard, and they are pretty hard. Now, when I compare them to the eye cups that are on the Vortex and the Swaro and other units, these are harder than most. They don't have very much forgiveness. Now, I do feel some fatigue here in my eye sockets from using these things yesterday. And granted, I was swapping back and forth from all of the other units to these, but I spent far more time looking through these than I did any of the other units. And I can tell you that, yeah, it kind of dig in here. The shape that these things are, the hardness of them isn't what I would classify as the most forgiving out there. Now, the controls on this thing are pretty straightforward. On the right side here, you've got your single button, and you push this button to range. I find this thing to be a little difficult to get on with gloves. It's not prominent. You can miss it. And then too, you can click. It'll make a clicking noise, but not actually activate the button. And I had that happen several times. If I get down on the side of it here or something like that, and I don't realize that I'm not in the middle of it, because with gloves, you can't necessarily feel where the middle of it is. And I'll click, but nothing will happen. And I'll have to reposition my finger and click again. And so like the buttons that you find on some other competing units, particularly the Swarovski. The Swarovski units have a very easy to feel and pronounced button so that you can hit them a little more effectively. On the other side, you've got your controls. Now, this is just your standard kind of up, down, left, right keypad configuration here with a center clicker as well. And that's how you control this unit. And so the menus are quite vast, and there's a lot going on there. So I'll leave you guys to go and play around in the manual and figure all that junk out, because I still haven't yet. It's going to take a bit of time and research to figure out how to get around in there. Now, the focus ring. Now, this is just goofy, folks. I am not sure what they were doing here or what their intended goal was. And maybe there's some specific application that I can't figure out. It is simultaneously the best and the worst at focusing. And I don't even know how they managed to do this. But the depth of field in these things is out of this world. The depth of field is, once I get that focus in the right spot, I can very clearly view objects. High resolution, looks great, in focus. I can read the reticle and the laser information. Everything is fantastic. From like 75 yards to infinity. Once you get it in the right location, it is unbelievable how much that depth of field is. It's probably one of the widest depths of field that I've ever seen in a unit like this. Once you set it, you don't even have to touch it. Okay, but if you bump that thing, if you move it accidentally, let's say you're going to dig it out of your bino pouch on your chest, you yank it out of there, and you fumble that a little bit, and you move it, everything is out of focus. I mean, you don't have to hardly touch this thing, and it will become out of focus. And so, that is a little bit frustrating. I don't really care for that much. The other thing is the knob itself, it's just very strange how it works. There's like a ton of backlash in it. It's very squishy. Like, you can see me moving this thing back and forth. This is how much it moves, but the focus inside doesn't actually change. It's almost like it's connected to a rubber band or something. I've never actually felt anything like it. So you can move it very easily, but then resistance builds until eventually resistance builds enough, and then it actually moves the mechanism and changes the focus. So, folks, like I say, simultaneously the best and the worst. Once I get it set where I want it, I don't have to touch it. So much so that I'm legitimately thinking of hot gluing it. Like, I'm going to get it in position, and then I'm going to hot glue it in its spot so it can't be changed anymore. Very goofy. And granted, I'm not bird watching with these things, folks. I'm not sitting there looking at, the bird's throat or something at 10 yards, and I need it to focus in, because it will. It'll focus down as close as you want it. It's crazy close. But I, kind of like miss the target audience much, like nobody's going to do that. Nobody's using this for that. We want to range animals that we're going to engage and shoot. So the focus thing is simultaneously the coolest and the worst that I've ever seen. Now we're going to talk about probably the most subjective, the impossible to be objective, most difficult to quantify aspect of any of these impression videos or review videos, the optical quality. Folks, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'll just simply say that it is significantly better than the Vortex Furies, like a whole bunch, and it is as good or marginally better than my Swarovski EL range units. So what that means is unequivocally the glass quality and resolution, the ability to view objects and view animals with it and to sit and use it in a spotting or glassing scenario is not going to be a problem. They are incredibly good to look through. And I didn't notice any severe eye fatigue either. Like I said, I mentioned some discomfort around the eye sockets there. I didn't notice any like eyeballs getting sucked out of my head type of a thing. Now, if you get the focus in the wrong spot or the diopter in the wrong spot, and both of those controls are they're pretty finicky, folks. You got to be just right on them. So this is not something that you're going to want to let people borrow and use very much. It's like I legitimately am going to like hot glue my diopter and my focus in position so that they can't be moved. Or maybe I'll design some sort of a clamp or something that I can put on there to make sure that nobody can adjust them. But as I say, once you get them in the correct locations, they were extremely easy on my eyes to look through. And in terms of what I could see, I'd actually give the nod to the Vector over the other units that I was using. I attribute this to the fact that I got the 12x42 instead of the 10x42 model. You wouldn't think that 2 power is going to make much difference, but it does. As I'm sitting here using this thing, and I used it all the way until dark last night, so I got to experience bright sun, cloudy, overcast, and then failing light and sun setting beneath the clouds and seeing what that was like. So like golden hour type stuff. And I got to have, now the sun's set and we're seeing the last light, right? So from legal shooting light to the end of legal shooting light into total darkness. And I was sitting there looking back and forth between these and the Swarovskis very frequently. Now, the Vortexes, folks, when it comes to the light, they dropped out quick, okay? I had plenty of legal shooting light left, and it started to get a little sketchy looking through those things. I just so this price to performance ratio definitely is a factor when it comes to optical quality specifically. So looking through these things was absolutely phenomenal, and I could detect more animals in more compromised locations, right, where they were in the shade under a tree or snuggled in next to a hay bale that's like the same color as them. I could see and detect more animals with these than I could any other unit that I had. Now, granted, I had them all tripod mounted, and I was very rigid and up in a relatively elevated position to view from, but that was saying something, you know. So like, if I were to make a recommendation on what power you should be looking for, I would say 12 power. If you're out here in the wide open expanses like I am, that higher magnification did make it quite a lot easier. Now, in terms of low light performance, again, they're as good or slightly better than the Swarovskis. And I say slightly better than is probably because of that magnification. The experience, it just felt like I could see more for longer with the 12 powers than I could my Swarovskis. And, to make that fair, I'd really need to get a 10 power version of these in order to do a direct head-to-head comparison. Now let's get to the good stuff that you're all here for. And this is the head-to-head ranging capability. Now this is the raw experience as I recorded it of ranging through these units. Now I tried to give each of them a pretty fair shake, at least 3, maybe 4 clicks or something like that to see what the capabilities were. I started with the big kahuna, the Vector 23. Now, folks, this thing will range the hair on a gnat's butt out to 8... I can't even say it. I bought this Vector 23 set a few years ago, 3, 4, or 5 years ago. I'm not even sure when I bought them. But I was tired of not having this anymore. And I was also not able to get happy with any of the commercial units that I could find in the $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 price point. They kind of all suck equally, frankly. If you can shoot small enough, and you're shooting at small enough targets that are distant enough, the rangefinders just fall on their face out here on the prairie. This is probably the most challenging environment that you can possibly be ranging animals in if you're a very precise shooter. And so I was tired of that, and I said, okay, I don't care what it costs. I'm going to go and get the best rangefinder on the planet. And I think that Vector 23 is probably that unit. I can range whatever I want. And it has allowed me to make shots that are just beyond silly in terms of its capabilities. I start with that one so I can get the range. Because if you're going to test the range finding capability of these units, I don't know how you're supposed to do that. Like, which one do you, suppose they're all lying, which that. So having a rangefinder that is infinitely capable is a pretty important aspect to making sure that you're getting real numbers off of these other units. So I would put the Vector 23 in there. I'd be scanning around. I'd find an animal. I would range it on video, and then I would switch to the Vector X, and I'd range it on video. Then I would switch to the Vortex, and I would range it on video. And so that's what you're going to be seeing here is that exact mode of operation for the majority of the examples. Now folks, use some common sense here, please. You cannot make a determinate judgment about video quality, the optical quality looking through these things. I am literally hand-holding an iPhone behind here. I'm just trying to demonstrate the ranging capability because the phone's camera is doing all kinds of funky things in there and who knows what it's doing. It's not, and then I'm zooming up on it in its digital zoom, not optical zoom. So, I mean, the viewing experience that I have looking through these things is infinitely different than what you're experiencing here watching this video. But I did want to show unequivocal proof about, hey, this is how the range finding experience went. And I ignore all of the ballistic stuff, right? Because I think the Vortex has the ballistics turned on. I left it off in the Vector. It's off, or maybe my model doesn't even allow it in the Swarovski. And then the other thing is I only had tripod mounts enough for the Vector 23, the Vector X, and the Vortex. So I didn't have a tripod mount set up for the Swaro, and that's one of its downsides. It's like the only way you can get a tripod on it is to use one of those center pivot mounts, and I just really despise those things. So I was hand holding that, and I was comparing it in the same scenarios as the rest of these units. The Swarovski would run right with the Vortex. So there wasn't anything that I could range with the Swaro that I couldn't range with the Vortex. I mean, they were like neck and neck with each other. So basically indeterminate in terms of what they're able to range. So just understand that whatever I was hitting with the Vortex, I could also hit with the Swarovski. And there was a little bit of edge. Like the Swarovski would be just a little bit better than the Vortex. I don't know what necessarily to attribute that to, but suffice it to say, there are differences between these units, and one day or one afternoon or one evening, one session of doing this stuff with those lighting conditions and everything, folks, there's just not a lot of conclusions that can be drawn from all this. We're going to start with the Vector 23 first, and I'm going to run some round bales here in no specific order, and we're going to start with some close ones, and then I'm going to move out to some far ones. I'll be doing this on each unit so you can get an idea of where they start to struggle. I am using a little tiny iPhone screen out here to aim this thing. It's not very pleasant shooting this video through these units, but I'll do the best that I can on all of these different models to get the aim point as centered as I am able. As you can plainly see, the Vectronix Vector 23 can range whatever you want. We'll hit some of these cows up close with the Vector X, and then we'll move out to the bales. $21.93 was the farthest single bale that I could hit with the Vector X. Next up is the Vortex Fury HD 5000 AB 10x42s. Now, I'm not going to tell you guys what one we're looking through every single time, so you'll just have to remember from now on what these reticles look like and realize which one we're looking through. So this is the Vortex. Next up is some Black Angus cows. So we'll just go in order like this. I'll do the Vector 23 first, then the Vector X, and then the Vortex Fury. This is what it looked like to use bracketing. And you see I'm ranging this animal, and then I'm ranging behind it, and I'm ranging to the side of it. And by doing this, I can get a really firm understanding of where this critter is. Now, you'll also notice that this Vector 23 is blinking. That means it detects that there's multiple distances or there's different objects in the path of the laser, and it allows me to cycle through them. By the time I'm all said and done with this, I am pretty certain that this animal is 2,185 yards away. This clip demonstrates the farthest that I was able to hit anything under any circumstances with the Vector X. Okay, so in conclusion, what are my thoughts here? My thoughts are this. I am disappointed. I'm disappointed in these. I'm still going to recommend them, right? Because the total package here, like what you get for less than $3,000 in this unit blows all the other stuff that I've used out of the water, right? The mount, just the total package, like how I feel about it is that they're better than any of the other units on the market that I've used thus far. Why am I disappointed then? Because I know what Vectronix can do because I have their more powerful units. I know what they can do, They just chose not to. That's the part that I'm disappointed in. This could have been the final word in laser rangefinding binoculars. Bottom line, with the quality of rifles and components and optics and the knowledge that everyone has these days, I mean, it's the golden era of precision rifle shooting. We need a rangefinder that can range a deer 100% of the time out to like 1,500 yards. That's not to say that we're going to be shooting it all the time there, right? But there are some people in some situations where a deer-sized animal of some kind, hey, that's the only shot that they're going to get, and they feel like trying it. Now, I don't want to get into the ethics of all this, okay? You're responsible for yourself. You make the shots that you want to make. You leave other people to do what they want to do. I'm not getting into that here. The point is, here is what this unit is advertised to be capable of. Here's the chart directly off of their own website. They show range, capability. Now, the Class 1M is supposedly what we've got here. That's available in the US. The Class 1 is apparently more restricted and is available in the EU or Europe. Now, they've got some little fuzzy stuff at the end of these bars here, but folks, they're saying maximum range of like 7,000 yards. They're saying deer out to like 2,500 yards. Does that line up with what you guys saw in these videos? I mean, there's a reason why I took this video. This is something that happens so often. Yeah, maybe where? On the moon? You know, like theoretically, what is the definition that they're using to make this graph? Like, where is that coming from? Is that actual real world expectations? Or is this just, hey, we've got to kind of find some happy medium here because every other laser rangefinder company is advocating for this type of crazy over-advertising of their capabilities. I'm not sure what is going on here, but long and short of it, folks, out here on the prairie, right? And this is just how I feel about these units. Maybe this one has something wrong with it. Maybe the next ones that I get will be more capable. When you start seeing other people share how they're able to use it, and granted, this area that I'm in is probably the most demanding area that you can possibly be in. These gentle rolling flats, these, not vertical. So the animal, it could be standing on a little hill and the next hill might be 200 yards behind it. When this thing is inside of 1,000 yards, it doesn't seem to struggle with that at all. It seems to lock right on. And I tried both the ULM and LRM or whatever the versions, there's two laser modes that you can use that change the algorithm, I guess, on how it used. And there's one that's optimized for tripod, very stable usage to give you the maximum distance. And then the other one is like handheld, I guess. It's for general use. And I was using the correct mode in all of these videos, but I also did try the other mode, and I didn't experience any benefit there. Now, the current street price on the Vortex Fury 5000 ABs that you saw in this video is $1,300. Folks, the fact that there was so little difference, and don't get me wrong, the Vector X was outperforming the Vortexes in every test. They did better every time, as you can see with your own eyes. However, the fact that they were so close, the fact that a $1,300 rangefinder that had a launch price, a street price at launch, you could get those things for like $2,200. They've been out for years, okay? The fact that those Vortexes that have been out for years can even get within spitting distance of this product is an embarrassment. That is absolutely absurd. Maybe their plan here is, well, hey, we're going to dip our toe in U.S. civilian shooter market again, and we're going to give these, if it goes well and it's profitable, then they'll give us like a $4,000 unit or a $5,000 unit that actually does what they are, or what we're wanting them to do. Okay, and I grant it. I'm also aware of the fact that my desires and my wants are probably significantly greater than the average U.S. civilian shooter. I get that. However, it is so frustrating to know what they're capable of, what kind of ranging capability that company can provide, and then to end up with this, like it feels like a half step. It feels like yeah, we want to, but we're not gonna. Like, it's just, it feels strange, right? I don't understand the motivation behind it. I think they're a little bit tone deaf, maybe a little bit out of touch with what we were wanting, because this could have been the last word, right? It could have been, hey, it's not even worth considering other options. Just go buy this. But I cannot tell you that. I cannot tell you that. The fact that this brand new unit, that a several year old unit that can be had for about a third of the price can even get within spitting distance of it is just absurd. It's instant embarrassment. Having said that, right, like if someone is looking for an Apex level viewing experience, if they understand its limitations, if they understand what you can actually expect out of it, and then two, don't get me wrong here, okay? I'm disappointed, and you're probably getting a little bit of that through in this video. I'm having a little trouble containing it. I was really hoping that this would be like my main one now. Like, I'm going to grab this before I would grab anything else. And the fact that I probably will, it's going to take me quite a while of use here to really, really be able to weigh in on them. This is just my initial disappointment. I was hoping for like PLRF 10 or 15 level performance at the very least, and we're not even remotely touching that here. Not even close. And maybe I'll find something that I'm doing wrong with it, like maybe over the course of the coming weeks of use, because I am going to switch to these, right? Rightly or wrongly, these are going in my bino pouch. I've got pronghorn season literally a week away. I've got deer season. I've got tons of coyote hunting that I'm going to be doing, right? So these are going in my bino pouch, and I'm going to be using them, rightly or wrongly. I need to get some time with them before I can really weigh in. If you don't currently have a laser range finding binocular and you're looking for something that's going to give you a great viewing experience and it's going to range at least as good or maybe marginally better than the other commercially like civilian targeted units that are out there on the market, this would be a buy, right? Because of the other features that it has, so like your tripod mount, the versatility of use. And I didn't even mention the doublers, right? There's not necessarily a doubler, but there's range extenders that go on the front of these things. And it takes, I have to look at, I believe 12 power goes up to like 18 power or something like that. So the concept of having that capability means that you could take this set and throw those little, because they're very small. They're like little tiny guys that go on the front of here. The fact that you could take those and throw them in your pack and take very lightweight tripods and the lightweight, that little panning head that Really Right Stuff has now, and the fact that you could use them as a quasi spotting scope, I'm really looking forward to that. So please don't misunderstand my personal disappointment based on my standard and my experiences. I'm setting a high bar here, okay? Like, I'm running around with gear that is infinitely more capable than this on the regular basis, and I was hoping to just have more. I was just hoping that it would be more, and it's not. That doesn't change the fact that it's probably still the best unit that you can get right now. It's probably still going to be better for most people's usage than competing models that are anywhere near the same price point. Because it does absolutely massacre a whole bunch of other products that are out there in the $3,000 price point. I mean, it is punching above its weight class here as far as price. That's one thing that I can say about it, is the money that they're asking is, I want to say $500 or $700 less, might even be $1,000 less now than the Swarovski. So, folks, there is no comparison here when it comes to value for your dollar. These things are incredible. And so I'm going to be ordering some more of them. I've got more on order. I won't even get into the fact that they promised a delivery date that was like forever ago this summer, and they've already blown their chance at like guys buying these for hunting season. And so I'm told that, I don't know, maybe they'll be like readily available end of the year or something like that. I guess if guys have them on back order, they're going to be trickling out between now and the end of the year. But don't be super shocked if you won't even be able to find these sitting on the shelf anywhere until like Christmas or after, like could be well into next year for all I know. Based on companies and their ability to hit timelines these days, it's just not something that we can even expect. So I don't know when you're going to be able to get a set of your own. If you are in the market, you'll have to just pay attention to that. And like I say, we are a dealer for them. And folks, despite my predilections here, I will be recommending them and I will be selling them because I think for the dollar, they are the best option right now for the dollar spent. And I do hope that in the future they will come up with a unit that has more advanced range-finding capability, or perhaps I'll get the other ones that I've got on order and they'll be better than this. And so I will be continuing to update you guys. I'll make more videos about this as I'm sitting out and using them. If you're not following me on Instagram, you really need to do that, because when I'm out running around in the world, coyote hunting and scouting and stuff, I put a lot of content up there on Instagram, especially my daily stories, right? As I'm running around doing stuff, I'll put it up there on those daily stories that are at the top of the Instagram app. So you just click on my little icon up there and it'll give you my little stories. And if you're not following me there and looking at those stories, I encourage you to do that, because the guys on Instagram, they already got to see some stuff through these, okay? Y'all are late here on YouTube. But YouTube is just not great for hit and run style content like that, where Instagram is pretty killer for it. And I won't even get into the fact that I absolutely hate all these big social media companies and how terrible their censorship is. And so you won't even be able to find my Instagram with the normal search parameters. You have to go at primal rights, like spell all of the primal rights out in order to even find it, because they have my account restricted because guns bad or something like that. But I would encourage you to follow me on there, and I'll be giving very frequent updates about my experiences with this unit as I go through this year's hunting season. I have a favor to ask of you guys today. Rather than me reading the scripture to you, I want you to go and read it for yourself. Pick up a Bible in whatever form you can get a Bible app on your phone, or maybe just look it up on the internet, or grab a physical Bible that you can hold in your hands, and go to the book of Genesis, which is the first book in the Bible. This is Old Testament. And I want you to flip to chapter 37, okay? And in starting with chapter 37, you're going to read about Joseph. And the message of encouragement that I want to bring to you guys today is that regardless of what happens to you, bad things happening to you, this has happened all throughout history. Bad things happening to good people. You may not realize this right now, but even though those bad things are happening to you, God's blessing is still on your life. If you love God, if you're doing your level best to live a good, God-fearing, proper life, then, hey, you didn't lose his blessing, okay? Just because bad things are happening to you doesn't change that fact. So the story here of Joseph is very amazing because Joseph was the favored son, but yet he had very jealous and unpleasant brothers. And when they had an opportunity, they were going to kill him. They were going to kill Joseph. But instead, they were convinced to not kill him, but instead sell him. So they sold their own brother, Joseph, into slavery. And Joseph was then bought and sold multiple times until he was bought by someone in the charge of the king of Egypt. And the king of Egypt had these dreams, and it was known that Joseph could interpret dreams, that he had the blessing of God on his life and could interpret dreams. And so the king called for Joseph, and he indeed interpreted his dreams. And so the king put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. And then the land where Joseph came from, they fell on some very hard times and were nearly destroyed, and then people were starving. And so Joseph's brothers ended up coming to Egypt to try to buy food, and they found, here is Joseph in charge of all of Egypt under the king. He had been put in the position of highest authority right underneath the king. And Joseph, despite the fact that he had every right to take vengeance on them, instead showed compassion and love towards his brothers. He welcomed them, he fed them, he took care of his family. And so this is just one of the very many examples in the Bible. And please do go and read the scripture for yourself. Having me tell you about the story here is not the same as the experience you'll have when you're reading it and feeding the Spirit within you in that capacity. So just take a few minutes and read Genesis about the story of Joseph. But the moral is that, hey, bad things happen all the time. If you keep your faith in God through those bad times, then you may find that these bad things that are happening to you are actually required in order to position you for God's great gifts in your life. The real wonderful stuff that he's going to be doing through your life is going to come after those things. Don't get bitter. Don't get disappointed. Don't get angry. Instead, be grateful. Be grateful in God's sight. Be grateful for the wondrous experiences that you're going through, good or bad, because chances are really good he's just not done yet. You got to give him the time. And in that time, you have to demonstrate your loyalty, your gratitude. You have to show him that, hey, you don't love God just because of what he does in your life for you. You love God for what you can do for him. You love God for the grace that he provides you, the sacrifice that Jesus made for you. There's countless reasons to show your love of God. There's countless reasons to love him instead of just loving him when he does something that you agree with. So I thank you all for listening to this message today. I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed week.